Hello and welcome back to the Scenario 7 podcast. My name is Sam and today I'm joined by the returning Joe Roberts. Joe, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing good. How you been doing, Sam?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Very hot day today, so just been lapping that up. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're not weathermen. We're here to talk about the Canadian Grand Prix, which is returning to the calendar for this season, and we will be seeing cars on that track this weekend. After a long time, after I've missed it. I'm not sure about you, but before we talk about the Canadian Grand Prix and start previewing what we expect to see, let's start by playing Have I Got F1 News for You? The game we play where I read out a headline, leaving out one of the words, and Joe has to guess what the missing word is. And then we talk about the issue that the article brings up. And this week it is from Autosport, and the headline is F1 drivers back penalties for triggering what in qualifying? I'll read it again. F1 drivers back penalties for triggering what in qualifying?
Yellow flag,
It's one of those words.
red flag, or flag,
Yeah,
yellow.
flags. I'm going to take that. Yeah, you're correct. Formula One drivers have backed a potential FIA initiative to penalise those who trigger red or yellow flags in qualifying, ruining the laps of rivals. The issue became a talking point in Azerbaijan last week after Fernando Alonso went down an escape road ending at the end of Q1, bringing out a yellow flag and spoiling the laps of anyone behind who had a chance of beating him. So the FIA have some rules on this already, but would you be for them being stricter when it comes to penalties for compromising other drivers' laps with flags?
Yeah, sorry, Sam. I thought a bit of my internet bit going there, but anyway, yeah. I personally think it should have been strict when Rosberg did it in Monaco, where it. I think the difference is if it's clearly on purpose, like Rosberg looked like what Alonso did, then I think there should be a penalty. As in, I wouldn't say like them going to the back of the grid, maybe a free place grid penalty, just something minor. I think when it's by accident, if you suddenly actually miss the corner because you're trying to reach the limit and trying to maximize like the speed out of the corners or whatever. I think I don't really agree with the penalty because it's just them doing it by accident. Unless there's a clear, them suddenly going turning and they're saying, "Oh, I don't want to go that way." Clearly, they're gonna, make the corner and then suddenly turn right in the escape road and then causing a yellow flag. And I think it was it Norris, or as in there was a number of drivers that did complain. They had, I think I know it was Albon.
Yeah.
I think they have a right to complain about it, but if it's by accident, I don't really agree with that. If it's by accident.
Yeah, it is a tough one because, as you said, this weekend there were a few drivers who had laps ruined by flags, and that happens every season. There's numerous races where people are on a fly, they're improving, and then bang, yellow flag, red flag, their chances are gone. And I think I agree with you for this one. I think it does have to be clearly intentional, but judging whether something's intentional is a bit of a grey area. Like judging intent is quite hard, but if it's clearly that they've done something to try and get the people behind to not improve, then they should definitely get penalised. But then if it is clearly by accident, I think it'd be very harsh. So it'd be interesting if anything comes from this, if the FIA decide that they're going to make the rules stricter or what they're going to do, because it's a tough one to get right, especially with that grey area of judging intent. But I think it's something we're going to have to wait and see. It's funny that one of the drivers that was asked this questions about whether they should be stricter is Alonso, and he said he'd be for it. And that was after he was the one that Albon was complaining about so much for ruining his lap. So Norris as well was another driver who said he'd be for this. So it'll be interesting if anything comes from it. But that's enough of Have I Got F1 News for you. Let's now move on to why we're here and talking about the Canadian Grand Prix, starting with the track. They'll be racing at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and it is a 4.361 kilometre circuit with 3 DRS zones, 14 corners, and 70 laps. Now, Joe, what do you think about this track?
I personally really like it. I was kind of disappointed. I think it was off for like 3 years.
2 years.
So So I think I enjoy driving the track on the F1 games, and it'd be good to see it in real life now. So it'd be interesting how it is with the new tires, the new cars. The interesting thing, as in looking at the weather forecast, it might change. That it'll be wet during qualifying, so it means that teams like Mercedes can't fix their porpoising. So maybe you won't get the correct setup for the dry, so that'd be quite exciting. I think overall, the track is probably, hopefully, the perfect circuit, because it's got the corners, which then obviously suits the Ferraris. I think like the McLarens and maybe the Alpines in terms of mid for maybe the AlphaTauri as well, and maybe Alfa Romeo. So it's with the corners, and then you obviously got the long straights for the Red Bulls. So I think in that sense, it's the perfect track. It just depends if the new regulations allow to be closer, and which could also cause more crashes just due to the fact that you're going to get close into the corner, into the last like chicane. So it'll be exciting. You can't really, because the two top teams in Mercedes and Red Bulls are good at certain sectors of the track, so it'd be again very, very close. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting weekend.
Yeah, it should be interesting. It really is a fast, low downforce circuit. It's quite stop-start with lots of heavy braking chicanes and the iconic hairpin. But then out of the corners, the track is quite quick. It's flowing, and it also has such an iconic piece of the circuit, which is the Wall of Champions. It has this because you have tracks like Spa that has a Rouge. You have these iconic parts of tracks, and this is definitely one of the most iconic, the Wall of Champions. The amount of drivers that it's got its name, the Wall of Champions, because of the amount of world champions that have hit this wall. I mean, the quality of drivers that have just one mistake and you're hitting the wall. So it's a challenging corner for all of the drivers, and it'll be interesting to see what setups teams bring, because Alpine, I talked about in the review in Baku, bought a very interesting setup with a very slim rear wing, which meant that on the straights they were rapid, but then lost out a lot in the corners. So it'll be interesting to see the differentials in setups. But yeah, I'm excited to be returning here, and it's a good circuit that has provided quite a few good races and some controversial ones, which we're going to go on to talk about now. So let's look back at the last race in Montreal back in 2019. And we'll start on the Saturday. So on Saturday, Sebastian Vettel got pole with Hamilton second, Leclerc third, Ferrari looking very strong that weekend. On lap 9, Lando Norris retired with a brake failure in the pit lane exit, with his brakes literally being so hot that it melted and caused a suspension damage. And yeah, it was quite a really strange moment. And then on lap 48, that's when the controversy got started, where Sebastian Vettel went over the grass at turn 8 before re-entering the track narrowly in front of Hamilton. And after, I remember on the commentary, both commentators were like, "There's nothing wrong with it. He's done nothing wrong." The FIA then came in and gave him a 5-second penalty for an unsafe re-entry, which I know that Martin Brundle was not very happy with. Hamilton ended up winning, despite being behind him, stayed within that 5-second gap. Vettel second, Leclerc third. Vettel moves the one sign after the race from where Lewis's car is to where his should be, being one of the most iconic moments in Formula One over the last few years, definitely, potentially in the past decade. And yeah, even after the race had finished, Ferrari went and appealed it. Their appeal was unsuccessful, but it was definitely a very controversial moment. But Joe, what is the memory you have from this race? Is it the iconic moment with Vettel and Hamilton?
Yeah, I think for me, especially that 2019 season, it was the dynamics between Ferrari. Kind of remind me of last year, the backwards and throwing, and how basically that season Ferrari kind of fell away at the end. And I think it was it round 7? I think it was round 7. I think it was a short, I think it was like 21 race or 20 races that season, a shorter calendar. I think it kind of put not the demise, but the doubt in Ferrari's mind if they can win the championship. I think it was a very decisive moment. Do I agree with the penalty? Yes, because I personally think if it left a gap, a half a car width gap between the wall, Hamilton wouldn't be able to get through. But there's arguments to say that he tried to leave a gap. I think that was my issue with it. He just basically went back onto the racing line, and Hamilton have to lift off in that sense. So that's why I think Singh deserved the penalty. But I think going back to what you said about the iconic moment, it shows that the pure emotion at the end of the race with Vettel moving the one sign to his car. It's quite an iconic moment, and it will kind of define that season in terms of the way that it's a lot of hot-headed moments by Vettel, but it was like pure emotion, which you want to see in the sport. And yeah, it is a very, very. I remember watching it, a very good race to watch. And even though it's some races in the dry are just sometimes quite boring and dull, or in that era of F1, it was very exciting, that race, and hopefully this weekend it will be another exciting race.
Yeah, certainly. I'm going to disagree with you on the penalty, Joe. I don't think it was a penalty. I personally think that Vettel couldn't really do much more. So he went over the grass, and first of all, he had grass on his tyres. He couldn't really leave a gap because he had such a lack of grip because of him going over. I think a penalty for that, personally, was very harsh. It wasn't a dangerous re-entry because there wasn't really much he could do. And Hamilton, at the end of the day, didn't lose anything. It's not as if he's hit him. He hasn't hit him. Hamilton stayed behind, and Hamilton hasn't really lost out. Vettel hasn't really gained an advantage at the end of the day because his tyres are now going to be lacking in terms of his pure performance. The gap between him and Hamilton is smaller. For me, I don't think a 5-second penalty was warranted. But moving on to my memory of the last race was the Kevin Magnussen and Gunther Steiner. I don't know if you call it a beef over the radio, but they certainly exchanged some angry words. We had K-Mag down in 18th, and he went on the team radio to say that it was the worst experience he's ever had in a race car. Him obviously starting higher up the grid, and then his race engineer comes on, who is still mix engineer to this day, being like, "Yeah, none of us like it. The engineers and the mechanics stayed in last night and did their best." And then Gunther comes in and just cuts him off. And he comes in with this very annoyed Austrian accent, saying, "It's not nice for us either. It's enough now. Enough is enough." And the amount of times that Gunther Steiner has come on team radio, he's just iconic, really. And it was just an iconic duo, Kevin Magnussen and Gunther Steiner. We had another moment, not during a race, where Kevin Magnussen may have slammed the door a bit too hard. I mean, that wasn't that weekend, but it was just the dynamic between Magnussen and Gunther Steiner has always been quite iconic. And that was my memory of the last race. Let's now go to the predictions. First of all, seeing how we did in Azerbaijan and how that has affected the predictions table.
I'm not looking forward to this.
No, well, that's understandable, Joe, because we'll start at the top. So staying at the top of the table is Matt, of course, who didn't predict in the last video, on 3 points. I'm still in second on 2.1 points average.
What did you get?
I got 1 point.
I guess I got 0.
I mean, we're going ahead to it, but yeah, you did get 0 points in Azerbaijan. The only point I got was predicting that Latifi would be the blue flag. And that is...
So I could have got a 3 point if I didn't try and be smart.
Yep. I mean, Joe, that is your problem. You could have, and I was only 2 laps off as well. I said it'd be 21 and it was 19. So I was gutted with that. But then we've got Josh in, I'll say you're third on 1.8 points, getting 0 in Baku. Josh is fourth on 1 point and Robert's fifth on 0.5. We do this on averages because we want to give people who aren't here often a chance to potentially compete, even though the people that haven't been here often are the bottom 2 in the table. But yeah, not a great weekend from either of us, to be fair. I mean,
my fantasy went terribly, and now my predictions go terribly.
It's all going downhill. I mean, Joe, I remember a few weeks ago you being cocky, thinking, "Oh, I'm winning the predictions. Oh, I'm winning the fantasy," and it's all coming crumbling down. It is.
Yeah, Ferrari making that happen.
Ferrari and you trying to be too smart with the predictions. But let's get on to the predictions for this weekend in Canada. And first I'll go through what we predict. So the first things we predict are some 5 quite specific predictions. So we go first accident, first safety car / red flag, first pit stop, first blue flag, and then the most overtakes. With each of them, we have to guess the lap, and then for most overtakes, guess how many that the driver you think will get the most will get. So I will kick us off with these predictions. I think that the first accident is going to be Mick Schumacher, lap 1. Now, I say it every week, no logic to this, but I've decided not to be mean to any of the Canadians because it's their home Grand Prix. And a lot of them are both of them are under pressure right now. So I'm just going to cut them some slack this week. So first accident, Schumacher lap 1. First safety car / red flag. I think you went for him last week. Yuki Tsunoda, lap 1. First pit stop, again, complete guess. Esteban Ocon, lap 13. First blue flag, I'm risking it not going Latifi, but I'm going Schumacher, lap 33. For most overtakes, I'm going Kevin Magnussen with 6. And I'll tell you what, I'm going K-Mag. He got the most in Baku. So that is the only logic I have. But Joe, What are your predictions for these 5 topics?
Well, I haven't done on this. I haven't done the who's going to pit first. But anyway, I'll do that on the fly. So I predict Stroll. I'm being mean to the Canadians, and I didn't realise how bad Stroll was doing compared to Vettel. So I do agree with you. He's a bit under pressure, even though his dad runs the company. So I think he's going to crash out on that one. Sonoda, I think, will cause the red flag by spinning off, missing Stroll, because he's stricken cast and he pings across the track. I'm not really pitching it very well. So yeah, I think Sonoda that one. And then there's pit stops, isn't it, next?
Yep, pit stop.
Yeah, pit stops, which I am going to go for Max Verstappen lap. How many?
70.
Lap 18. I think it's going to be softer mediums and long stint on the mediums. Actually, sorry, I've scrapped that. Max Verstappen, lap 24. Okay. So there's going to be a long stint on the mediums. Probably going to get it wrong. Then Hamilton with 6 overtakes I've gone for the most overtakes. And again, another Canadian under pressure. Don't think it's going to get any points. Still got to be in 20th. I put Latifi on lap 22.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's for blue flags. I think that's kind of a 3 point, but I'm easing off them this week. Now, the final thing we're going to do is predict the podium, and none of us got any of the podium right last week because little did we know that Ferrari were going to just fall apart. But I will go first predicting my podium. So I'm going to start in third, and I've not gone very exciting, to be honest. In third place, I got Charles Leclerc. I just think that the Ferrari are not in a great place as a team at the moment. And to be honest, I even have doubts about them finishing with the issues that they have at the moment with their reliability. But Charles Leclerc have gone third, as it was between him and Sainz, and he's the better driver. Second, Checo Perez. At the end of the day, great driver in a great car, but Max Verstappen is the better driver and he'll get special treatment either way. So I've got Leclerc third, Perez second, Verstappen first. But Joe, what is your podium?
I've gone for a fantasy comeback here from the dismal round of Azerbaijan. I've gone Leclerc P1. I think Ferrari will have the 1 lap pace, which means I think that they will be able to stay ahead. I think it'll be battle of the pit stop. So I think that's how Red Bull are going to sneak in front. Sainz, I think we'll get P2. I think it'll be a front row lockout for Ferrari. That's why I think bold prediction, because Sainz has been quite poor in terms of making mistakes and qualifying. But I think hopefully, for my sake, he can sort that out. And then I think Perez needs to step up. Well, not step up, but stick the middle finger up Helmut Marko and finish ahead of Max and show why he should be fighting for that world championship. It's more of a wish list than a prediction, but I think Perez needs to show Max that he deserves to be in the fight. Yeah,
well, I like your podium. It's different. We've both gone for very different podiums, with me thinking that the Red Bull will be stronger and you hoping that the Ferrari are going to be stronger.
I'm hoping they can actually make it to the end of the race.
Yeah, hopefully that their hydraulics and their power unit stay solid till the end of the race. But that wraps up our podcast previewing the Canadian Grand Prix. It's great to be back in Canada and looking forward to the race. But if you like this channel, if you like this content, remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below your predictions. We want to know what you think. If you want to stay up to date with what is happening at the Scenario 7 podcast, our links are down below. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.